Hey there, Tech Moms, it's Kelsey. This is a video walkthrough series of Assignment 1 in Excel. So we already have Allison's walkthrough using Google Sheets, but we know many of you are using Excel and thought this would be helpful to you to be able to see how to do the assignment in Excel. We know there's some differences. It's been a bit of a confusion. So follow along with me, but that's what this video series will be about, and we'll have some fun. Okay, so for assignment 1, where we're going to exist with the instructions here is under module 2, assignment 1 on the README. We're going to scroll down. This video that I'll do here will cover step 1, get to know your data. And the first step in this is to review the Tech Moms 2023 annual report. That exists here. I don't know if you can see, that exists here. Paying special attention to student demographic sections. So this is actually really helpful to include this in here. Not all data jobs you'll have something available to you like this. And so the reason this is valuable to go through and review is because you can get an idea of what leadership is looking for. You can get an idea of what the data is all about, what kind of info they're trying to pull in. So going through and getting an idea of that just provides broader context once we get into our data set. I'm not going to cover that in this video because Allison already did that in hers, but just know that that's a really important component to these steps. Step 2 says, the next step of step 1 says to download the Tech Moms applicant data CSV file. That is going to exist here. So if I click on this, I come up to the top right, I have download raw file, and I'm going to click there. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is show this in folder, and I'm going to double click. I have several of these, as you can see. So okay, I have this open here. Now, something to be aware of as you open CSV files in Excel is that Excel has the ability to read the CSV file. But that doesn't mean that it's the best format to put into Excel. So my suggestion would be that the first thing we do before we start building anything out is we save this in our Excel file format. So if we come up to this top ribbon, anything I say that says ribbon, I'm talking about anything in this top section. We're going to come up to Save As. And it's going to think for a second. Save As. Tech Moms applicant data anon, and I'm going to save this as 4, looks like. And then you'll see it says save as type. If I just hit save, it's just going to save it as another CSV file. So I need to click save as type, and I'm going to come up and click Excel workbook, and then I'll hit save. Okay. Now once you've gotten to that point, this will be a new file saved as an Excel, and we're ready to move ahead. So let me pull up our next steps. Oops, went to the wrong thing. Go to the README. It says start by evaluating the columns to understand the data that you're working with. We're going to create a data dictionary. I'll show you how to transpose copying the columns. We're going to add a row at the top for header names for my data dictionary, and then we're going to add a tab called questions. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come back to my Excel file, and first thing that we're going to do to make this more readable is we're just going to highlight only our column header. So you can either click and drag to highlight those, or click in the first cell you want to select, hold down Control, Shift, and hit the right arrow. So again, start with the first cell that you want to select, Control Shift, and then hit your right arrow, and that will select your entire header row. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up to our top ribbon under the font section, and we are going to fill my cell with this gray color. And that just helps me identify that as a header. So I've got it highlighted. One thing I think would be helpful is if we bolded the text. So I'm going to come up and hit bold. And that's really nice. I think that's going to make it clear to read. Something that's a little funky about this is that you can see like, all right, I've got contact ID covered up. I can see all of my cohort header, but I can't all the way see the values that are inside of cohort. So I can go through and I can either sit there and drag these across to see everything I need to see, or Excel is smart enough to provide an option to do that. So let me Control Z. Oops. Control Z too far. So if I need to go like forward a step, if I come up to the very top, I have this go back or go forward. So I'm going to redo. I want that to be bold. And then to make this kind of spread out, so it's I want my column widths to fit whatever the data values that exist inside them are. I'm going to come up between A and 1, and there's this little like corner looking arrow. I'm going to click on that, and what that does is it selects my entire worksheet. Every single row, column in here, it's going to select everything. And then I'm going to move my cursor. I'm not going to select column A. So if you want to select a column or select a row, you get this arrow. But I want to hover my mouse between A and B. And the way you know you're in between is with a bar with 2 arrows going outside of it. Okay, so once you hovered there, you're going to double click. And what that does is it tells Excel, I need you to expand all of my columns so that I can see my data. Okay. Next step in this is I need to be able to filter. So you have the option, if I'm getting familiar with my data, I can scroll through here and I can look and see, oh, okay, interesting. I've got this much going on. I've got, say I'm looking at degrees here and I'm like, okay, cool. It looks like I have, I don't know, 3 or 4 different options. That's not necessarily that precise, and it depending on how many rows of data you have, that could take forever. So what we need to do is add a filter to our headers so that we can filter our data and familiarize ourselves with what exists in our data set. So what we're going to do, now this is a pro tip. If I've scrolled down far in my data or in Excel, you can either scroll back up, but no one has time for that. So what we're going to do is hit Control and then hit your up arrow, and that takes you to the top of your data set. Okay. Now you notice it stopped on employment status somewhere. It went up to the first next place that had like a value before there was a space. Okay. So just hit Control and keep hitting up and you'll get up to the top of your worksheet. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all of our rows, our column headers in row 1. And the way that we're going to do that is, again, Control, Shift, and then hit your right arrow. And that's going to select just my column headers. I'm going to come up here to the top ribbon under Editing and hit Sort and Filter. And underneath these options I can either sort these A to Z, I can sort them Z to A. You're welcome to play around and see what those different things do, but what we need to do is turn on filter. One thing to be aware of is that Excel tries to be helpful. Excel tries to give explanations of what the different tools do. So if you hover your mouse over filter, it brings up this like tooltip box that says, turn on filtering for the selected cells. Then click the arrow in the column header to narrow down the data. I'll show you exactly what that is. So if I click on filter, what that did is in all of my column headers I had selected, it gave me this filter arrow. So I hover my mouse over here. Right now it says, hey, I'm showing you all. I'm showing you everything. If I click on it and I go, oh, interesting. I am really interested in just seeing, let's say maybe I'm looking for my cohort. I can come down to this search bar here and I can search for 2021 fall. And I go, oh, okay, cool. Let me go in and select my my cohort. It defaults to having all of them selected at once. So what we need to do is uncheck all of them, select the one that we want, hit OK, and Excel will filter down to just that one option. Something to know, so you'll see here on the left-hand side, this is showing me, all right, this is row 116, 121, 127, and it's skipping a bunch of rows, and so it turned that like tealish blue color in my case. And that's showing me that I have filtered data. It's saying there are actually rows in between this, but you're filtered somewhere. If you'll notice, if I come up here to my top ribbon and I see this filter icon is turned on and hover my mouse, it's saying, hey, you're filtered on 2021 Fall Tech Moms Salt Lake City. Now that's not necessarily what we want to do here. I just want you to be aware that's what the filter function, that's what that filter functions as. Okay. So click there and we're going to come here and say click filter from cohort or clear filter from cohort. Okay. And that brings me back to my data. The next step here is going to be that we familiarize ourselves with the data. So again, you can click this drop down arrow, take a scroll, go see, okay, cool, I got 2022, 23, 24. Okay, I have some values that say just applicant. I have some that say dead lead. I keep going, okay, I've got waitlisted, that's good to know. And then interesting, I do have some fields that say blank. That's a good question. That's something I would wonder, like, why do I have some fields that say blank? That doesn't quite make sense to me. Sounds good. Then I'm going to come over. Maybe I'm looking at applicant status. I'm going to scroll through and see the different options that are on here. So that shows me their status. I can come to computer availability and see, oh, okay, cool. So I've got some people that say they don't own a laptop, some have Macs, some have PCs, and then again, some are just blank. Either they didn't fill it out or they didn't have an option that they felt like matched their situation. Then I could come over. This is really valuable. Say, for example, education level. So what I see on my screen is I'm like, all right, there's bachelor's degrees, associates, bachelor's, high school, graduate, some college, no degree. And I could assume that that's all the available fields that exist in here. But if I click on the down arrow, I can come in here and see, oh, there's actually a certificate option. Or, oh, there's actually doctoral degree. Like there's a tech mom in here with a doctoral degree. And that just shows me the available values that exist in that column. Okay. So again, this whole process is just familiarizing yourself with the data. And it's a really important step before you get into doing your analysis. Okay, so from here, let's get into the next step. It says create a data dictionary, transpose the headers from horizontal to vertical. I'll show you how to do that and create our questions tab. Okay, so let's go back to our Excel. What I'm going to do is in the bottom ribbon, basically, there's this plus icon. I'm going to click on that to create a new sheet. Now there's a couple ways to rename your sheets. You can either double click and that will let you rename it, or you can right click and come to rename and that will again let you do that. So I'm going to put data dictionary. And then what I want to do is I want to define, I want to get from a really quick way, I want to get all of my headers, like the text of the headers, I want to get that into my data dictionary. And the way that I'll do that is I can either select all of row 1, or what I would recommend we do is click A1, Control Shift, and then hit your right arrow, and that will let you select all of your headers. Okay. So again, let me show you again. So come to A1, Control, hold down Control, hold down Shift, and hit your right arrow. And Excel is smart enough to just go over and grab all of those header columns. We're going to do Control C. And when you do Control C or right click and do copy, these little ants pop up to show you that these are the cells that you have currently selected. What we're going to do is come down to data dictionary. We're going to right click and there's rather than just paste, you could do Control V, but what that's going to do is just paste this in here like this. That's not what we want to do. I want to provide definitions in a readable format. And so instead of pasting it just as it shows on my data, I actually want to transpose it. I want, instead of being horizontal, I want it to go vertically. Okay. So let me Control Z. I'm going to come back to my data. I'm going to Control C, go back to data dictionary, and I'm going to right click. And now Excel has several different paste options, which we could maybe get into another time. But you can either paste them as actual values, you can paste them as formulas, or what we want is to paste as transposed. Now I'm hovering over this and I'm seeing that this isn't quite doing what I'm wanting it to. For some reason, it's wanting to do it like a billion times. That's not quite what I want. So let me exit out of there. I'm going to Control. Now, if you want to unselect your rows, say I'm coming back here, I'm like, I got something funny going on. Come back to where you have selected and hit Escape, and it will deselect the rows. It'll deselect your selection, okay? So I'm going to come back here, go to A1, Control Shift, right arrow over, Control C. I'm going to come back in here. And the reason that it was showing it so many times is because I had selected cell A1 to N1. And so it's like, all right, I'll paste that as many times in all of these cells because those are the cells you have selected. So when you're pasting something, you need to select the cell that you want it to paste into, like where you want it to start. And we're going to right click and then come to transpose. And it will paste that in there. Instead of horizontally, it'll paste it vertically. Okay. Now again, I don't necessarily want these bleeding into column B. I want to expand how wide column A is. A quick way to do that is hover your mouse between A and B, double click, and that will pop that in there. Now I'm going to provide some definitions. So the first step in doing this is I need to create some headers. So I'm going to right click on row 1 and I'm going to come down to where it says insert. And what that does is it inserts a row just above the row that I had selected. I'm going to come here and put column name. And then one thing to know, so as I was typing that, I'll just show you again. So I'm doing column name. I can either come up here and hit check to say, yep, that's the cell that I want. I can hit enter, and if I do enter, it will go down to the next row, or I can hit tab, and that will go to the next column. So again, I can hit enter to go to the next row, or I can hit tab to go to the next column. Okay. Now I'm in column B and I can either double click to start typing in there. I can just start typing, or you can click on the cell you want and come up to this ribbon, which is where you can, it's called the formula bar. And that's where you can go in and type the value of B1, which is what we're going to type definition. So this is column definition. Okay. So hit enter to confirm it. You can also hit the check mark. And now the next step that I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to start putting definitions. So I'm like, all right, what's the contact ID? What is this column? And if I come here and look at it, I'm seeing, all right, looks like there's one contact ID for every individual applicant. So what that would tell me is this is the unique ID, or let's see, identifier for each applicant, or something like that. It says in the instructions that we can use ChatGPT for help with that. Pop into ChatGPT and maybe paste 10 or so different values and say, can you give me a data definition for what I'm seeing here? And it can sort of help you brainstorm that, okay? But your homework is to go through and define all of these in a way that makes sense to you. So we'll come back, we'll do another one. Cohort. I'm looking at cohort, I'm clicking my drop down, and I can see, all right, this clearly looks like the cohorts to which an applicant was assigned. So I'm going to come back to data dictionary, and I'll say the cohorts to which an applicant was assigned. Okay. Again, I don't want this bleeding over, so I'm going to go between B and C, double click, and that will highlight in there. And so on and so forth for this step. The following step in this part of the process is we're going to create a questions tab. So again, come down to the bottom ribbon. We're going to create a new sheet, double click or right click and hit rename. And we're going to put in questions. Now, what I'm going to do, I want to put a little title on here so I know what I'm looking at. And I'm going to go, this is questions for leadership. Okay, I'm going to hit enter to go to the row beneath, or in some cases I'll hit tab and that takes me to the next column. And as I'm looking through my data, remember I came to cohort and I thought, that seems really funny to me that there are applicants that are blanks. It seems like they should have something in there. Now the reason that's important is that I get into analysis, are those going to have to be rows that I exclude? Is that going to be part of the process of data cleaning, which will be our next video? Or is that something that I can ignore? It's something to bring up with leadership. And so we'll go to questions and we're going to say, why are there blank values for cohorts? Okay. So the process that you're going through is looking through each of the columns, familiarizing yourself with the values that exist. If you see things that are funky, you're going to come in, write some questions, and then you're going through and adding a data dictionary. And that will do it for step 1 of familiarizing yourself with your data.